Hey everyone, welcome to the Dream Big, Pray Hard, Never Quit video series. Today we have got Dr. Clay Worrell with us. Thank you so much for being here today. He is going to tell us his Dream Big, Pray Hard, Never Quit story, which is quite remarkable. You guys are going to really learn a lot about this great man today and all the things he's done and what a story he has. I am so excited that you're here and the story you're going to tell us. So I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Well, I'm honored to be here, RJ. Dream big, pray hard, and never quit. I'm just honored to be here and share with your group that life's a journey and a process. And at a young age, I guess maybe my story. I'll try to maybe keep it brief, but at a young age, I grew up lower income. Sometimes I felt like poor. One time my dad and I picked up cans down the railroad tracks and rode for food, and at a young age I kind of knew that I didn't want to grow up and live like that
Right.
as an adult. So as a young child, I guess I was a awarded athlete, in football, baseball, and martial arts.
Now we got to say you went to Southern Wayne, right?
I did.
So you were a rival of me at Eastern Wayne.
We were rivals.
I'm assuming you graduated a little before me.
I don't know. I almost think about the same time. 89?
Holy, we're the same age.
Yeah, we're the same age.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm 48 years young.
I am actually older than him. Do I look it? I think I look pretty good for 49. But
You do. You look great.
Pretty good for 48.
You look great, man.
All
You
right.
look great.
All right, Keith, stop laughing over there and shaking. Oh, so I hit the mic. Go ahead, man.
It's okay. No, but from a young age, I'd kind of made my mind up. At the age of 9, I was working on the, as we say in the South, a backer farm, or putting in tobacco. So I was cropping tobacco at 9 and worked on the farm till about the age of 16. And on the weekends, my dad would often put me on a Greyhound bus to Raleigh, and I'd work in a barbecue lodge, Don Murray's Barbecue Lodge, there in Minnie City. And so I mean, at a young age, I mowed grass, worked on the farm in the summers, and from the age of 9 on, I knew hard work. For me, I appreciated hard work and the lessons that it taught me. And now, as a grown man, I look back on those times and I realize that a lot of the characteristics or traits that have allowed me to maybe do some good things in life. There's been some bad things too, but they're built there in childhood. So
Right.
I was really blessed as far as I had a very loving mom and dad. My dad taught me probably the most important thing that I've ever been taught as far as achievement. He said, "Clay, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to doing," and he really drove that into me as a child. And so, kind of fast forward a little bit. I graduated. We'll back up just a little bit. At the age of 15, my parents split up. Okay. And when they split up, I had to sit up there on the doorstep. My brother went with my mom, or I went with my mom. My brother went with my dad. He was 10, I was 15. And so from the age of 15 to 17, I started getting into a lot of trouble. At school, got in trouble with the law. And it only took really one time of me getting in trouble, bad trouble, to realize that that's not what I wanted. And so at the age of 19, I started selling real estate. At the age of 17, what led to the age of 19, me doing that, at the age of 17, a lady, a teacher named Linda Ruth Walston, she was actually from this area. She told me one day at school, I told her my dream of selling real estate or making some money, being a businessman.
Right,
She said, "Clay, read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And, take heart to what Dale Carnegie says in that book and follow it." And I said, "Okay." So I read that book. And in that book, Carnegie shares 90% of the millionaires in the world come from real estate. So I said, okay, so let's go down the real estate road. And also in that book, I kind of learned that really there's nothing or not a lot special about special people. Really, what makes what we see in the highlight clips of
Right.
life, or we see in the big pictures or
Kind
the
of like
awards,
social media highlights, the
that's
highlight
it.
reel.
That's it. Really, what makes these what we call special people in the world isn't so much about how they started in life. Um, it isn't their last name. It isn't their level of intelligence or IQ. It isn't what type of degrees they receive. It isn't all those things. It isn't color. It isn't gender. What I discovered in that book was it had a lot more to do with what I believed. Could I persevere? Could I set a goal? Those things determine whether or not people achieved. So
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly right.
yeah, So I at the age of 18, I made my mind up. I'm gonna sell real estate. Um, at the age of 19, I finally passed my real estate class, and
So you passed it at 19.
yeah.
I know people our age that are still trying to pass it.
Man, it's tough. I did find out that it is one of the tougher tests you can take.
I've heard it's extremely hard.
Yeah, and it's a book. Probably maybe that thick, and a lot of law in it, things like that. It took me twice to pass it, and I had to take a cram course. I think it's called the J.Y. Monk cram course, something like that in Raleigh, and so I passed. So when I passed at the age of 19, I still had peach fuzz, and seriously. So I started going, the little salon that I went to, I had her dye it, with hair dye, the peach fuzz. So she dyed my peach fuzz, and I sold my truck and went out and bought this used 190E Mercedes. And,
You got to look the part, right?
Yeah.
You got to look the part.
That's it. I was living in a 10 by 50, really old blue trailer. My dad rented me for $100 a month, which was a lot of money at the time, it
Right.
seemed. So here I am with this used, nice looking though, Mercedes, living in my 10 by 50 trailer. And I went to a men's clothing shop where they took or opened up credit accounts,
Right.
bought some clothes on credit, and I interviewed at Century 21 and they hired me. And I said, well, let's go make some money. Let's do this thing. And pretty quickly, within inside of a year, I was in the top third of real estate agents. I had bought 3 houses. I had a Mercedes and a BMW. And through just pure perseverance of cold calling, they featured me like in a magazine out of California for Century 21, the Century 21 Gold. And they said, Clay, how in the world at the age of 19 are you doing so well? And I said, well, I call people till I get one. And the lady said, what do you mean you call till you get one? I said, well, I pick up the cross directory and I call people and let them know, hey, I've got a family. We drove through your neighborhood over the weekend. They really liked your subdivision, but we didn't see any for sale signs. Just out of curiosity, if I could get you more for your home than you ever dreamed, would you even consider selling your home now in the near future? And it was either a well, yeah, or, heck no, are you crazy? And if it was just a well, maybe, then what I would do is a free market analysis for them. And, I would drop that off at their house free of charge and just give them a card. And literally some days, like I told the lady in the magazine, some days it would be calling 200 or 300 people. Or some days it would be 10 or 15. But I had made my mind up. I didn't have a last name that would get me in a lot of doors. I didn't have a reputation. I certainly didn't have any age. Most homes I listed, I was young enough to be their kid,
So a lot of hard work,
A lot of hard work.
a lot of struggle, kind of the pray hard part of the dream big.
Yeah, and the never quit part. I had to change who I was. I had to change some things about me to maybe be able to connect with the people that I'd be talking to.
Right.
For example, I started reading the Wall Street Journal. I started looking into what people would know that would be the people that I would be talking to what are their concerns? What are some things they would address? What is their life like in the age of me, 19 years old at the time.
Because that had to be very tough because you're selling houses to 30, 40, 50 year olds and you're 19.
Yeah.
And in their mind, they're going, what is this kid
Yeah.
doing trying to sell me a home?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you were in the top third by the age of 19.
20. Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
20. I do want to step back just for a minute because you mentioned a teacher that kind of put you on that track. And I know in before conversations you mentioned her a lot.
Uh-huh.
And as a teacher myself,
Yes, sir.
I think it's great that I wanted to stop really and just say that to the teachers out there, you never know who you're touching and when you're touching them.
Absolutely.
So, don't ever give up on somebody. We reach a lot of people all the time, and we don't even realize we're reaching them. And that teacher, I mean, have you talked to her since? And so she kind of knows?
I did.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kept in touch with her, and we're still in touch.
Good.
We are still in touch, but I came back to her. I came back to Southern Wayne High School about a year and a half after graduation, and I was able to pull up on my little 190E Mercedes. I had my London fog, trench coat on, and I was just so dressed up.
And it was the middle of summer, right? You had your trench coat on?
Yeah, with my, with my dyed mustache. But I came back through there, not so much maybe to boast. I mean, I guess it would have been a little bit because I was a bit of a class clown. I was acting out. My parents had split up. It was a really, really difficult time in my life. I started experimenting with drinking, started experimenting with smoking pot a little bit. The teachers thought, I was on the roll sheet about every single morning my senior year for getting in trouble for something. I mean, literally, I had to go to summer school my senior year to graduate. And, I went from an A and B student. I've got a high IQ.
Right.
I made straight A's, occasionally a B, and never studied. I never did a book report, never studied one day, never studied 1 hour.
Okay, we want to stop there.
Yeah.
Students,
Oh,
we need to make sure that you're not listening to this part.
Right.
You need to keep studying and get straight A's.
Get studying. Yeah, look.
Yeah. See. So we're not going to block that out because it's part of his story. But my students and the students at Charles B. Aycock and all the other students study.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Well, I've got a like my IQ is 155. So I've got an IQ that's supposedly like really smart. But I'll say this: if there's anything on the planet, there's several things that if I could roll back the hands of time that I would change, RJ. One thing that I would change, for sure, is I would have learned good study habits. I would have took and taken school seriously. I definitely wouldn't have went to school and see. I had the ability and still do to listen. I'm an audible learner, so I still study today by audible.
Right.
I do read, and now I write and write some books, but I would have taken it seriously because little did I know, 20 plus years later, I'd end up back in college.
Right.
And I did not know, I didn't have any study habits. I didn't have any ability to highlight, to understand how to break a sentence apart, to understand, to look for significance in sentencing, sentencing structure, and the ability to write. Long story short, students, do this for yourself. Don't worry about what your friends are doing. Don't worry about all that other stuff. You know what I mean? Don't try to fit in so much to be cool. Take your studies seriously. It's a crucial time in your life. But I guess maybe to fast forward, got out of high school. I built houses for a year, passed the real estate exam, started selling houses. I did that for about 3 years, and so I was able to buy some homes and be able to buy some nice cars, date a lot of beautiful girls, drinking, every day. which I thought was no problem, but I was getting a little concerned about myself.
Right.
I started snorting cocaine on the weekends by the time I was 21. Again, didn't look at it as a big deal because a lot of people in the group I was running around with did it. And then I got into corporate America. I got into actual manufactured housing. And I did that for money,
There's a lot of money in that.
Well, quickly at the age of 25, I was the youngest manager that was ever promoted with a 68-year-old company, a Fortune 100 company on Wall Street. And by the age of 26, I was the youngest manager to ever be promoted. So at 20, I believe 23, 24, I went on board with them, started selling. At the age of end of 25, promoted into management, and then at 26, was in the Wall Street Journal. I was awarded a Manager of the Year out of 378 managers nationwide, and made a lot of money. I was making good 6-digit numbers.
Right.
One month I made, my bring home, my check was over 50,000, close to 60,000.
And that's 1 month?
1 month. And,
I'm sorry. Keith is the producer. He's sitting there with his hands over his ears. Maybe we're in the wrong career.
Well,
I'm just joking. I love teaching, and so does he.
Yeah. Well, it was a business, and I really learned pretty quick. What I did learn about business and people in life is don't try to reinvent the wheel. Pick up, listen to, and learn from the biographies, the life of other people.
Exactly.
When you want to be successful in something, look up the biographies, look up who's been successful in the field that you're looking at going in, and look up people that are similar to yourself.
Right.
There's no need for for me to look up being successful. Let's just say my dream was basketball. At 5'9", I definitely wouldn't need to be looking at people 7 foot tall and successful in basketball. If I wanted to be successful in basketball, I need to be looking for some really small guys in basketball. And what did they have to do to be successful in basketball?
Exactly.
For me, it was business.
Right.
I immediately, in real estate, I did this, and in manufactured housing, I did it. It's a technique that I've used, and I use it now in the field that I'm in now. I find the top 5. Find the top 10 to start out with. Find the top 10 in your field that you're looking at going in. Narrow them down. Try to get some similarities there as far as background, demographics, geographics, where they come from, that type of thing. Call them. You might call the top 10. Out of the 10, you might get 5, you might get 3. But find 3 to 5 that are willing to talk to you and share their experience. Share.
And most successful people want to share what they did.
Absolutely.
Because I have found that if you talk to a lot of successful people, they talk about how they got there to help other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's great.
Successful people, you'll find one of two. Now there's 4 different personality types or 5 different personality types. Depends on. With me, there's 4 the way I train it: analytical, amiable, driver, and expressive. But 5 if you want to go into the psych side. But when you look at managers, you'll find generally 2 people that do it out of inspiration or desperation. In other words, they'll motivate you out of sheer fear, or they'll motivate you out of encouragement.
Right.
For the most part, you'll find leaders or encouragers.
Right.
We like to get into your mind. We like to understand what drives you. We like to understand, your why. Why are you, your why tells me a whole lot about, it could be your kids, it could be your husband, it could be you wanting to help other people, whatever it might be. For me as a leader, I'm all about your why. I want to know what drives you, what wakes you up in the morning. Why are you here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And that is, why are you doing what you want to do?
That's it.
And, once you figure that out, and I think that is great advice is ask people.
Yeah.
Ask the people that have been successful and kind of follow them. And you're going to have to adjust it based on you because no two people are alike.
Right.
But you do what's best for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's great advice. Let's go on. I want to talk. You were talking about how you got into some drugs and alcohol. And as everyone can see, he's got a patch on his eye, and tell us a little bit about that, and then what you're doing now with Epic Life Solutions and how you got into that, because that is an incredible story of what you're doing now to help people that are going through the things you went through. And I think it's amazing how you have gone through what you've gone through, and now you're helping others get through it like you did.
Right. Well, whenever we look at who we are, in other words, my worldview,
Right.
How I view the world, and then look at maybe what drives us as people, whenever we see someone like myself that went into addiction, I've never met one now, a person, and I've met thousands now with some type of addiction. I've never met one that said, man, when I started out drinking, I started out doing this or that. My goal was to become an addict.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, never was. Kind of like in manufactured housing, like what made me there. And I'm going to back up just a touch so that way people kind of see what I'm saying. At 25, they offered me a store that was ranked 374th out of 378, fourth from the bottom, right? But I knew that with hard work, I could overcome, the bad lot, the clean it up. I could hire the right people, do the right ads, train the people right, whatever it took. I knew that it was the man, not the land. So I took on the challenge because I had to believe. I had to get down deep into something that was taught to me as a young child. I had to believe. My believing had to be so clear that it had to be stronger than the doubts, the fears, the worries, the concerns, the situations, the circumstances that life brings along. So I had to believe really, really deep that I could. Once I believed that I could, I did. And it was that type of man that went down a road of, after being successful with a corporation, being a corporate trainer, ended up buying my own business, bought my own dealership. When I bought my own dealership, I fell hard. I couldn't really handle the stress of owning my own business, and the market was going down. All at the same time, I went through the first drinking binge ever in my life. Went through a drinking binge at the age of 30, and called up this pastor. I was an atheist, you know what I mean? A die-hard atheist. Didn't believe in Jesus, didn't believe in the church. But I was scared to death. I'd been through a drinking binge and couldn't quit drinking. So I called a pastor to meet at a local church on a Saturday, said some prayer, didn't understand anything that was going on, kept on drinking, checked myself into the first 21-day rehab, Walter B. Jones. Went to the rehab, thought I was fixed and cured, and only to get back out, start drinking again pretty quick, after that. Well, fast forward just a little bit, a couple of months down the road, and there's three guys dribbling a basketball down the road, and I get behind them in my truck. I just got done playing golf, had a couple of drinks in me, and rolled the window down. They were dribbling the ball down the middle of the road and causing a traffic backup. I rolled the window down and said some really choice words. You know what I mean? Get the F out of the road, and cussed them out. They went over on the side of the road and picked up chunks of asphalt. You know how the road will break off on the side?
Yep.
Yeah, well, they picked up these chunks and threw it through the windows of my truck. They cut me up pretty bad, busted out all the windows, literally. Man, I was maybe 2.5, 3 miles from the house. I drove my truck home, went and got my 9mm, and went back hunting them. I had flown into a rage, RJ, that I'd never been in that kind of rage before, I don't think. I was a fighter. I was an awarded fighter, in martial arts. Had never been really violent with a gun. But this particular day, I drove back and I looked for 3 individuals in an apartment complex, and I set out to kill them, and I meant it. And my family knew it. They were yelling at me, "Don't go, don't go." To fast forward in the whole episode, I ended up being shot in the head myself, point blank. It went in this dimple right here,
Right.
and then it come out over here at my temple. And so I shot point blank with a 9mm,
And survived.
Yeah.
Got shot in the head and survived. You think God had a purpose in your life?
Well, you would think, after being shot in the head with a 9mm, I've got 13 plates in my head, titanium. I've broke a total now of 19 bones in my body. I saw part of heaven in this experience. They couldn't find a pulse or a heartbeat. They ended up resuscitating me, bringing me back to life. They took me to the local hospital and then put me on life support, then airlifted me, the chopper to Vidant, which at the time was just ECU.
Right.
But airlifted me over there, and after a little over 30 days in the hospital and 3 major surgeries during that time, a total of 11 before it was over with, life changed for me. I now have one eye, and pretty soon after that, they fitted me with a prosthetic. But as we'll discuss in just a minute, I now do some things where eye contact's important.
Right.
But during that time of my life, I fell deeper into addiction, and I fell deeply into depression. For the 1 year after being shot, I didn't leave my house but literally a couple of 2 or 3 times.
Gracious.
And that was to check the mailbox. It was all I could do to walk out my front door and check the mailbox. Now, I was the same guy. I'm the same guy that was bungee jumping, skydiving, cliff jumping, riding motocross, karate, been in hundreds of fights, organized fights,
Right.
martial arts, and a bunch of street fights. A really outgoing guy, but I found myself in a place of depression, of darkness. My family kept asking me to go get some help. And, I was a self-made man.
Right.
And, I'm trying to now go back a little bit. As a young child, I learned the value of hard work, but I also learned the value of willpower. The power of believing and overcoming. Everything that was hardwired into my system was all about me. It was all about, if anybody's going to do it, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it through perseverance and persistence. You got to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps or whatever you want to call it. And if it is the BS up to me type attitude, well, now I find myself in a place of depression, which I thought was for weak people. I didn't understand it really. It felt like a closet. I mean, it felt like I was in a small, little bitty, if that's a word, little bitty closet with no clothes, no blanket, no pillow, complete blackness and alone. And I felt that way for a year. I mean, I was married at the time. My wife and I didn't have sex for a year. I didn't talk to people. I mean, it was all I could do to walk out my front door.
And how old were you again at this time?
30. It happened at the age of 30, so 30 to 31 years old.
All right.
And this went on for a while. Well, I finally went to see a psychologist, right? And the psychologist, he heard my story. He said, "Well, Clay, I hear you're a self-made man and, high IQ, and you made all this money and you're in the Wall Street Journal." He said, "Well, do you believe in God?" I said, "Well, I do now." You know, because what I'd
It's amazing what something like that happens. You start believing in things you didn't used to believe in.
Well,
Right.
I mean, I'd had an experience that I saw part of heaven. I had a guy paint it here in town, a guy named Ben Gibson. He's an artist.
Yeah.
And Ben painted what I saw. And I knew that I knew that I knew for the first time in my life that heaven was real. And for me, people asked me, you know, Clay, that they were asking me in a roundabout way, if I could go back, would I, and change things where it didn't happen, as far as being shot in the head. I tell them, you know, honestly, I wouldn't change it a bit. I'd be shot in the head all over again to see what I saw. For me, on this side of eternity, on this side of reality,
Right.
for me, it turned out to be a very significant moment that has now kind of manifested in my life. So for me, I wouldn't change a thing. You know, I came to believe, but a sad thing, a sad reality of it is even believing like I believed at the time, I fell deeper into addiction, deeper into depression. Now doctors, inside of 6 months of me being shot in the head with a 9mm, I got in my truck, driving down the road, drunk and high on pain pills. I hit an embankment, broke my leg in 2 places, broke, I think it was 8 or 9 ribs at this point. I mean, I was messed up bad. So my head was bandaged up, my ribs were broke, my leg was, casted, had 2 rods put in it. Messed up, man. I had just opened up a dealership. Just opened up a dealership before all this happened. My brother was running it. It went out of business. Ended up filing bankruptcy. My first marriage ended up being separated, divorced. From there, started living with family, with friends.
So you went from having everything
Yeah.
to having nothing.
Man, I've had Rolexes, I've had boats, I've had Harleys, I've had houses, I've had 30 plus cars, every range of car from Corvettes to RX-7s to Lincolns to any kind of car you can imagine. I've had it. I mean, any type of drug, from Xanax to ecstasy to shooting heroin to smoking meth. I've snorted 200,000 plus in powder cocaine to snorting Roxy's, taking Opana, Percocet, every type of fentanyl, Opana. Drinking from every wine, liquor, beer you can imagine. Every drug on the planet, man. Mushrooms, acid, LSD. I've done it all, brother.
Now, as a teacher, I've got to
Done
stop
it all,
here
man.
and say, you see what happens? He had everything: the money, the cars, the houses. Got into addiction, into drugs, and the alcoholism. Lost his eye, lost his wife, lost everything he had. Now, there is a turning point, which we're getting ready to go into. But I just want to make a point. Addiction ruins your life. It ruins your life. So if you're out there and you're on drugs and alcoholism and doing those things, get help. Get help now. And Dr. Worrell is going to actually tell you how you can get help. So I'm going to let you keep going.
Well, this went on for a long time. I've been in 10 plus jails. Okay. I've been to prison for 90 days. I've been to 25 plus detox units from West Palm Beach to Roanoke, Virginia. 4 failed programs. AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery. A total of 19 broken bones. And sometimes when I share this, it's a sobering moment in life. For 12 years, I lived with friends. I lived with family. I lived in hotels for over a year. I lived with my mom on her couch for a couple of years, lived with my brother out on the sunroom in Florida on a blow-up mattress for a couple of 2 or 3 years. I've slept behind buildings. I've slept in vacant buildings. I've spent well over a year just in jail, in different jails, in different states. For every single bit of it originated out of drugs and alcohol. None of it was any violent crime or me robbing a store. It was always something related to drinking, either drinking and driving or some action related to drugs. 12 years, for 12 years my life looked like that. And I was living in the time at Columbia, South Carolina, in Columbia. And I'd spent a good part of my life in Columbia, about 8 years. I've lived corporate-wise, moved from Goldsboro, North Carolina, to Greenville, North Carolina, to Columbia, South Carolina, to Austin, Texas, back to Columbia, being a corporate trainer. Well, I ended up back in Columbia, South Carolina. In the midst of all this addiction and depression, my brother and I joined up again, and we were working there in Columbia, kind of cleaning out foreclosed houses. And I made communication with an old high school sweetheart. And the long story short is I ended up in Clayton, North Carolina with her. She got a divorce after a first marriage, and she was or is a Christian, a very good lady. And my intent was never to marry her, of course. It was just to go down there and hang out with her a little bit. Well, I drove the truck down there and never left. We ended up getting together, and she had never really been around an addict, and we ended up conceiving a child, married, and married with child, Clay still in addiction, me still in addiction. After a lot of counsel from the church and different people, she packed her stuff up and left. So I had been yet locked up in jail again for the weekend, doing some outlandish stuff, drunk, in public. And when I come home, the apartment was empty. She had left me a mattress, some canned food. A bicycle had taken the vehicle. It was in both of our names. So I had a bicycle, I had my golf clubs, my clothes, some canned food, and a mattress. And I laid on that mattress, for about 2 months. I would ride my bike back and forth to the store, buying alcohol. And after about 2 months, RJ, I said, well, I've been to all these rehabs, but I'm going to give it another shot. And so I did. My best friend, a guy named Tony Jimenez, super great guy, a Christian and a very, very good man, drove me down to a rehabilitation center, regeneration center, a 6-month-long program. And when I went in the program, I was there probably about 8 years prior. And I hated every minute I was there. And I left the program about a month and a half into the program. I left it, just walked out. And I hated it. I really wasn't ready. Well, this time I went into the program with an attitude of, I'm going to stay till I get it. And what I knew in my heart was, if I didn't get it, I would die an addict.
Right.
And I hated my life. I lived an existence of hell on earth.
And how long was all? You said like 12 years of your life.
Yeah.
12.
Yes,
just,
sir.
That's a long time.
12 years, man.
You're looking from like 30 to what? 42?
That's exactly right.
And now you are 48.
48.
So we're talking like 6 years ago.
That's it.
6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what has transpired in those 6 years?
All right.
Because that story is amazing to me.
Well, in 6 years, from the moment I graduated from the program, from the rehabilitation program, I immediately got into Bible college and worked one-on-one and hand-in-hand with the founding doctor, and stayed in college and traveled with him for a couple of years. So at this point in time, this is 6 years down the road, I now have a doctorate of theology. I have a master's in biblical counseling. I have founded and co-founded 2 ministries. I'm the executive administrator of the Bible College. Now have a PhD, of theology, and I'm now an author. I've written 3 books, and I've worked it took me a little over a year to create a program, a 91-day program for the body of Christ and for individuals and families at their homes, small and large groups, called Epic Life Solutions. EpicLifeSolutions.com is the website.
Now, at the end of this video or this discussion or interview, whatever you want to call it, we are going to have the program up so you can kind of see the box and all the other stuff that goes along with it. But I just want you to kind of talk about it real quick.
Yeah. Well, RJ, what I found is this, a couple of statistics. Me being a corporate guy, business guy, and now newly into the realm of not only ministry as in preaching and teaching, because I had done some preaching on YouTube and different TV channels, but really my drive and my desire was to help people.
Right.
I enjoy helping people find their purpose in life, find out why they're here in the first place, right?
Well, that sounds a lot like Dream Big, Pray Hard, Never Quit.
You and I are so much alike.
I agree.
We share a similar vision, a similar goal. I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to work with you, and we carry the same torch. Epic Life Solutions. What went into that was this: is we forget 90% of what we hear inside of 72 hours. We forget 97 to 98% of what we hear inside of 2.5 weeks. We learn today 65% to 70% of everything we do is by that phone. It's not by laptop, not by an iPad or iPod or iPad. So 65, 70% is by the phone. We don't really go to meetings anymore. We don't gather up and go to meetings. We're doing more things through media networks and through learning via email,
technology,
podcasts, whatever it might be. Right. Well, as the body of Christ, I noticed quickly, and then I started looking at statistically. Statistically speaking, inpatient programs at around the 12-month mark can be extremely effective, okay? So if you go to an inpatient program, stay 12 months long, and it's a Christ-centered regeneration like a teen challenge, they experience a good success rate.
Right.
You can rate it between 60 and 75%, somewhere around there. The average 30-day program or less averages less than 1% successful. Now, follow me through right quick. These are the stats I started looking at. NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery, according to Harvard's Lance Dobbs, he's an addiction expert, averages between 5 and 10%. So 7.5% statistically.
Right.
The average inpatient program, RJ, is set up behind the 12-step idea of AA and NA, and they average about 7.5% statistically for 90 days or less. When you get around that 6-month mark, you're looking at 40%, 30, 40%. So to see any really, to see some results, it takes time. So me as a teacher, me as an encourager, I set out to, why not empower the people at home? Why not empower families at home? Why not empower small and large groups, whether it be a church, a business, any type of organization, a family unit, how could I empower them where they are, give them the keys to recovery? When I say recovery, I just don't mean addiction. Chemicals is a part and piece of the puzzle, but depression is an epidemic in America.
Right.
We see epidemics today of manifold, compounded epidemics of pornography, which ends up breaking the family units down, where statistically 80% of all men 35 years and under, 60% of women 35 years or less of age, 80%, 60% looked at a porn site in the last 30 days. Marriages, 50% or less surviving. Suicide and overdose, statistically, the number one and number two killers. It's not car wrecks anymore. They're the killers. They're what's killing people 50 years or less of age. So we're taking our own life. We're overdosing. We as a society have used the same model of treatment, which statistically isn't working. And the only statistic where it does work, you have to be away from your family for a year.
Oh, yeah, 12 months.
Yeah. So,
and still, you're only at the sea level at 75%.
Yeah. So my goal was to meet people where they are, give them the keys, combining the keys from different models of treatment, and release those keys to them in their own environment. And give them the key of being able to listen to the key or the message. It's knowledge.
Right.
It's nothing but knowledge. I mean, the bottom line is what separates me from a brain surgeon is what the brain surgeon knows. What separates me from a nurse is what a nurse knows. What separates an addict or a person that's in depression often, and I'm not discounting that there's not a medication that can assist there a little bit.
Right.
But most often, it is knowledge. In other words, just understanding how to process information, how to truly, forgiveness, unforgiveness are often big keys in there. Finding forgiveness for yourself or for another, but also learning how to structure our lives in such a way where we can deal with life on life's terms, in life's terms, being able to set goals, finding our purpose, developing confidence, and learning the keys to creating that life that we're looking for. It's all knowledge. It's as simple as learning how to develop the keys that makes, well, for example, most businessmen and businesswomen on this planet have written goals.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
They have written goals. The 7 things to do before you go to bed in Epic Life Solutions. Number 1, clean up, tidy up, put dishes away, kind of straighten up your room, lay out what you're going to wear, your clothes, but also lay out what you're going to wear in your mind. In other words, I know before I go to bed what I'm going to be listening to the next day. I have my goals that are in writing. I do a little bit of journaling before I go to bed. I do a little bit of devotion time. I read something positive and encouraging.
Right.
I make amends where amends need to be made before the sun goes down. I carry a light load each day into life. In other words, I'm not waking up with a bunch of stuff from yesterday. Yeah, I'm waking up with an approach to my today. I don't want to use the wrong term or it not be understood, but I wake up with an offensive. In other words, I'm going on offense in life. I'm not playing defense in life. You as a coach know, and anyone that watches sports knows, that defense, typically, 99% of the time, defense doesn't score.
Right.
It's the offense that scores, right? The quarterback is on the offense. He's throwing the ball. For so much of my life, and it's an epidemic in America. For so much of our lives, we wake up and literally we're playing defense from the time we wake up. For example, they're thinking about, well, what I didn't get done yesterday, or I need to make apologies, or I need to make amends. I wonder what's there. I wonder what's here. In other words, we're constantly in our mind.
You lose sleep.
Yeah.
You just can't sleep. And when you do, it's like 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Yep.
And you're exactly right. I was like that, corporate America.
Yeah.
Same way.
Me too.
I was the same way. And I became a teacher, which was my life's purpose.
Yes, sir.
I sleep 6 to 8 hours, solid.
Sound.
Yeah, I don't wake up. I do wake up, thank God. I wake up and I have a light load, and I'm like, all right, let's go enjoy the day. And it's a different mindset.
The most amazing thing happened to me 6 years ago. When I learned the keys, I took some of the keys out of my corporate life, some of the keys, goals,
Right.
specific, obtainable, measurable, in writing.
Right.
When I took some of the keys out of my corporate world, some of the keys that I picked up from all the regenerations that I had failed, and I started asking, now this is key, I started asking the people that were coming back in relapsing, I started asking them why they relapsed, right?
Right.
And then I asked people that would show up on the weekends or the retreats, the people that graduated successfully.
Right.
Over 6 months, they would come back in once a month, right? And share with us guys. But I would ask them privately. I would ask, what is it that you're still doing that you were doing here? What's the key to your success? What's the key not only to your sobriety, because that's just a small piece of the puzzle. What's the key to your success? This is what I discovered, RJ. That in corporate America, it's the same key for corporate leaders as it is for people that break free from addiction. And it's also the same key for people that are successful in life, period. That key is a quiet time in the morning. What do I mean by quiet time? I mean, in the morning when I wake up, I have an outright ritual, man. I have a habit. It's habitual. When I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna lay there. May sound a little corny or a little whatever, but I'm gonna stretch. I'm gonna stretch as big as I can stretch, as long as I can stretch. Take some deep breaths. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray just a little bit. I mean, I'm talking about a 30-second prayer. Then I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna read something that's inspirational.
Right.
Then I'm going to, every single time, like clockwork, I'm going to listen to something that motivates me. I personally listen to contemporary Christian music, something with some good heart, praise and worship. I'm going to listen to something, man, even if I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? Like when I wake up, I'm feeling like, oh man, good Lord, it's morning. Not good morning, Lord,
Right.
It's morning. And I'm feeling like, oh man, it's morning. By the time I get done with praise and worship, a little bit of prayer, a little bit of devotion reading, 100% of the time I'm going to address the day with a positive attitude.
That is so funny because today I was getting my car cleaned.
Yes, sir.
And it was a long line. And I was sitting there on Amazon, Amazon Music.
Yeah.
And I was updating my playlist for my Christian songs I listen to in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I do the same thing.
Yeah.
On my way to school, I'm either listening to Joel Osteen
Yeah.
or Christian music.
Absolutely.
Because by the time I get to school, I'm there. I'm like, all right, okay, I'm at a good place.
Yeah.
And now I can teach. I can be motivating for these kids, and it's so true.
Yeah.
You've got to start your day off in a good place, or it's going to affect the rest of your day, and it's going to affect the people around you.
That's it. Well, the one thing I discovered, just one part or piece of the puzzle is this, is you have to pay attention, we have to pay attention to what's going in our ear port and our eye ports.
Right.
You know, if it's going in here and it's going in here, then it's going in here. If it's going in here, then eventually it's going to go to here, my heart. And when it goes to here, it's going to come out of here. And then it's going to come out of here in my actions. For my actions to get better, or for my mind to be in a positive state, for my mind to get better, I have to pay attention. I have to pay attention to what's going in my ears, what's going in my eyes. And I'm going to be intentional. My walk on this side of eternity, my morning and my day, everything about it is with intentionality. I'm going to be intentional about what I'm listening to, what I'm reading, and what I'm allowing to go in my ears and my eye. I'm gonna be intentional about it.
That is so true. I mean, I love it. I always kind of close with, well, I know you're married now.
Yes, sir.
Right, and you got two beautiful young daughters, right?
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to leave them out of it. So tell me about them real quick.
I've got a beautiful wife. Her name is Felicia, and we also minister together. She has her master's, and she is a retired school teacher. Now she works for a company called NASB, North American Senior Benefits, and she helps people with annuities, final expense. And she is an awarded female there with the company and does really well. She also helps me with Epic Life Solutions. And I've got actually 3 beautiful daughters. I've got 2
That's right.
with Felicia.
That's right.
I've got a 3-year-old named Zoe, beautiful little girl. I've got a 7-year-old now. She just turned 7. Her name is Felicity, beautiful little girl. And a little girl named Audrey. She's 17 years old from my first marriage.
Right.
Very intelligent, beautiful young lady. And I've just got a beautiful family. God has answered every prayer in a bigger, better way than I ever dreamed possible. And, this same guy that was depressed for 12 long years, I tried to commit suicide 3 times. It was just really, really tough. I can say this with all confidence and truthfully, I haven't had a bad day in years, RJ.
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
It's a great feeling.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wake up in anticipation every single day of the day, what the day has to offer, and excited about this path God's got me on, and I just enjoy helping other people. I love people like you. I love to encourage them, and I love helping them find their purpose, their calling for being on this planet. I love helping them to develop confidence and a plan for their life. Yeah, that's what I'm called to do, and that's what I do.
Well, we greatly appreciate you being with us today. Great story. Thank you so much for sharing it. And we are going to put Epic Life Solutions on after this video, so you can get the website and learn more about it. And it's been great having you. So again, thank you very much for being here. And remember to always dream big, pray hard, and never quit.
Hi, I'm Dr. Clay Worrell with Epic Life Solutions, right? We're all looking for a solution, it seems, at some point in time in our life. At some point in time, we're saying, hey, I need to build some confidence. Why am I here? What's my purpose? How do I develop a plan? How do I take a vision? How do I get a plan, and how do I put that into action for my life? I've developed a very unique 91-day program for you at your home. 91 messages that are yours forever to keep, with 13 weeks, 13 unique, specific, targeted topics, keys to a successful and abundant life. No more going to counselors, no more listening to a message and, well, you get all pumped up and excited, and then you're like, what did that guy say, or what did that girl say? And I can't remember all that stuff. Well, what I did was this. You can get it on flash drive, by email, or DVD. I've written 3 books, a manual that's so easy to follow. It's only 45 pages long, but it's specifically targeted at your life, where you are today. No matter no matter where you're at in the process of life, right? If you're already here, already there, just looking to maybe put the finishing touches, right, on life, no matter where you are in life. It'll start you at a ground level, build you right on through with all the keys it takes to having a successful life, seeing that vision, that goal, well fulfilled. Let's get started today. See me at epiclifesolutions.com. Let's get started.